Bitcoin is trading at $114,000. It is now the month of August, meaning there's only 5 months left of the rest of this year. There's also less than 80 days left now until we reach the maximum cycle length that Bitcoin has ever gone after the halving, which means we are nearing the end stage. So in this video, I want to share with you my thoughts, the charts, how to take advantage of it, levels to watch, and let's dive straight in. By the way, if you need a place to trade spot and futures, BLOFIN exchange is, in my opinion, the best place to trade. We are doing monthly giveaways also for my referrals. 2 iPhones every month valued at 1,500 USDT, up to 9,400 USDT cashback on trading volume, and much, much more. The link to sign up is in the description down below. Okay, so let's start off with the monthly returns. July ended up being green at 8.13%, which is actually perfectly in line with the average and the median for July. Now we're in the month of August. I've already highlighted this several times, but what the pattern is that I've noticed is that every year before the bear market, so 2013, 2017, and 2021, they were all green for the month of August. We are now in that exact same pattern timing-wise. So in theory, 2026 is going to be a bear market, which means this is the year before the bear, which means that based on this pattern, August would be green. Now, the second pattern is that every single, either August or September, since 2013, without fail, one of the two has been red. So we are going to see what is going to happen. If we get a green August, based on this pattern, it is very, very likely that September will be red. If August is red, that doesn't necessarily mean September is red. We can get a red September also. So both of them could be red. But we know that at least one of them will be red, which means that if August is green, then September likely is going to be red. And why that is important to keep in mind is because as the month progresses, if we do have a green August, and you know that September is going to be red, well, that gives you a heads up and allows you to either take profits or hedge or be prepared for whatever bigger crash is coming in September. Then if we look at the Bitcoin price after halvings, we are now 471 days after the halving. The longest that any previous cycle has gone on is about 550 days, which means there is less than 80 days to go, less than 3 months, in fact about 2.5 months to go until we reach that maximum cycle length, which means that assuming that this time is not different, we have less than 2.5 months for the cycle to give us a blow off top, which means you should also be paying attention to your strategy. Are you going to be exiting? How are you going to be scaling out, especially as we get closer and closer to the middle of October? Because unless this cycle is different, which we can't assume, then it could be very dangerous holding on to your spot portfolio past the cycle length, because as we know, in the bear market, everything gets destroyed. Even Bitcoin, which does better than altcoins in terms of performance, still got absolutely smashed in the 2022 bear market, dropping more than 70% from the cycle peak. Okay, so let's take a look here at Bitcoin, and we had a bit of a red week last week. So this is the weekly chart. We have the 50 moving average in blue here, and I think we're at a point where things are pretty simple. So we are obviously still in a bullish trend on the higher time frame, which is always the case. We're making higher highs and higher lows. We're above the 50-week moving average, and that is just technically bullish. But as you can see here, I think this is a line in the sand, this kind of level around 109,000. If we get back below 109,000, especially with the weekly close, I think it is starting to look dangerous and we could end up going a lot lower, lose 109,000, then the next target becomes the 50-week moving average, round about 92,000. If we lose that 92,000, then it is officially bear market, and we could go back to 50K or 40K. So it's all about the different levels, if, then, and that's how to approach this. Nobody knows the future. I don't know too, and it doesn't matter. It's just about trading the levels. So if this holds, however, anywhere between last week's low, 112 and 109, dropping into that could still set us up for a continuation and maybe a move once again to new all-time highs. So that's the criteria. Nobody knows for sure what's going to happen, but at least knowing these levels with a strategy and a framework of if-then, you know what to do. If we lose 109, we can look for shorts all the way down and keep shorting. If it holds over here, we can look for longs targeting the 123,000 all-time highs. Now, zooming out Still on the weekly chart, you can see we have to pay attention to this. It is still a warning. We have bearish RSI divergences on the weekly chart. And you can see what this means is that every single time the price here is making higher highs, the RSI is making lower highs. This is a divergence in the relative strength indicator. And this just means that the rally is not being confirmed, and that while it's being pushed higher, it is unlikely to continue higher for much longer. Now, this is a weekly time frame, which means that these divergences can take several months to play out. As you can see, there was only a second thrust over here with a bearish RSI divergence that had put in the top of the previous cycle. Now, as we are getting closer to this 550 days post-halving, 18 months, mid-October, that is when we have this bearish RSI divergence with a maximum cycle length and combining other factors like, for example, the coin value days destroyed is starting to spike. We are starting to see old wallets, dormant wallets that haven't moved in literally 7, 8, 9, 10 years that are now waking up and starting to sell. That is distribution that happens towards the tops. So we are starting to see more and more of these warning signs, and the closer that we get to this maximum cycle length, the more likely it becomes that the top is going to be in. The question is just going to be, we still have about 2.5 months left. Do we still get a final push up, and how high is that push going to go? And for that, obviously, we look on the lower time frame. So if the 109, like I said, the 109,000 holds, maybe we still see a run to 123, 125, 130, 140. It is still possible. But if we start to lose that 109,000, especially with the weekly close, then things start to get different, and you should adjust your strategy based on that. I'm just sharing all of this information with you so that you understand more what is happening and that you have more data points to look at to help you make better decisions for yourself with your own portfolio. Now let's take a look at Ethereum. Ethereum, while it was over 3,900, it already dropped back to just under 3,400 already. We're back at 3,500. Now, what we still need to see is just based on this chart, technically, we still have these equal highs over here, just over 4,000. And I do think they will get taken out. Based on the chart, just purely on technicals, before the cycle is done, I do think we see above 4,000 Ethereum and maybe even above the previous all-time high. It is possible because we still have this approximate 2.5 months. Maybe altcoins can still run 1 or 2 or 3 weeks later than that as a maximum. So somewhere until maybe mid to end November for altcoins is still the window that we have, and there's still plenty of time for it to chop around and maybe take the highs and then kind of be done, something like that. So I think there's still possibility for a decent run in Ethereum, and if Ethereum takes all-time highs, then obviously other altcoins will probably also still see some upwards momentum. But it has been very frustrating throughout this entire cycle. Every time alts start to look remotely decent, something happens, the stock market drops, Bitcoin does something, and we just don't get much momentum at all on altcoins. Now, hopefully that is going to change. Hopefully it is going to be like in April of 2021, where in the last 4 to 5 weeks of the cycle, the altcoins finally get their move. Keep in mind, if we look at Dogecoin, for example, in April of 2021, Dogecoin did a 10x in 5 weeks and then came all the way back down, and that was the cycle top. So, assuming we still have maybe 2 to 3 months left of this cycle, there's still time for altcoins to maybe repeat something like that, and that's obviously the hopium that we have. But you should also very much be aware that if we do get that pump and alts do whatever they're going to do, 2x, 3x, 5x, if we're lucky, of course, that is very likely the final exit pump. And if you don't remove initial and you don't take profits, you're going to get caught bag holding in the next bear market and get absolutely wrecked. So what we have here, Doge is still at 20 cents. And we did get closes back below here, the 50-week moving average. Unfortunately, this means that the bullish signal that we got when it reclaimed it is now once again invalidated unless we can get back above, let's say 23 cents with the weekly close. For now, we're back below here, and that is just bearish. As a pure technical, we are below the 50-week moving average. Maybe that means the whole market is still going to drop, and that really depends on what Bitcoin is going to do and if it can hold that 109,000 or not. It also depends on what the stock markets are going to do this week, what the dollar index is going to do this week, because last week the stock market got absolutely hammered. And if we're going to see more downside on the stock market, we are probably going to see more downside on crypto too. And in that case, the whole market is going to go lower. So it's not just Dogecoin. You can go and look through a bunch of the altcoin charts. For example, PEPE, for example, Solana, they all got back below their 50-week moving average. Let me see if I can find that for you here real quick. You can see, for example, PEPE over here, it closed with a weekly close back below the 50-week moving average, and we have all these lows here. So if this is setting us up here for a drop where the stock markets are going to drop in a red August, it could end up taking these lows, and then the whole market is going to go a bunch lower. So we need to see these altcoins get back above their 50-week moving average with a weekly close. If we want to turn bullish again, that's my criteria that I'm looking at. You can even see with Solana, so it closed below its 50-week moving average. It took this high with a wick above, closed back below, and it just doesn't look good. We don't want to see this. If we're bullish, we don't want to get back below the 50-week moving average. It's really that simple. So there is risk here for downside. It's going to depend on the stock markets, on Bitcoin. It is possible that everything drops in the month of August and maybe even September. Although, of course, we had Jim Cramer who said August and September are the worst months to make money. So if inverse Cramer is right once again, that means things are going to go up. Again, it's all about if, then, and for now, as long as we're below this 50-week moving average on these charts, that's technically bearish, but if we can get back above there, especially with the weekly close, then the picture flips bullish again and we can start targeting the highs. These are just strategies that you could follow. There's many different strategies to follow, but for me, this is what works. And as long as we're below 50-week moving average, I don't want to turn bullish. As long as we reclaim it, then I will look bullish, especially as we're approaching the end of the cycle. We still have a window, like I said, of 2.5 to 3 months, 2.5 for Bitcoin, maybe 3 for alts, where something could happen. Maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't. And the closer we get towards the end of the cycle, the more likely it is the top is going to be in. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. What do you think is going to happen? Are we going to get a blow off top? Is the best yet to come? Are we still going to pump? Or is the top already in? Let us know your thoughts. Smash the like button. And if you need a place to trade, I can highly recommend a BLOFIN exchange. The link is in the description down below. For spot, for futures, at this point in time, no KYC is mandatory yet. So it does work in a lot of places around the world. I personally trade there. I'm a fan of the exchange, and we have a ton of bonuses and giveaways and cashbacks for anyone who uses my link to trade. So the link is in the description down below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.